If you have the activity, you'll be successful. If you're in the right community, you'll be successful. If you have that conviction, you're going to be successful. If you can get those three things, right, that we talked about today, the consistency, the community, the conviction, you're going to be successful. That's the secret that isn't a secret, that if you have those things, then you're going to be just fine.
From a 17-year career in law enforcement to now in the final expense industry, from almost going broke to breaking through and writing over $100K in final expense production in 1 month, Mr. Brian Jackson, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, so glad that you're with us today. And I say this every time, Brian, when I get on a podcast with someone, is we really did this to just give back to an industry, right? Because you know this, so many first-year agents, they get overwhelmed, they're frustrated, maybe they're confused, maybe they're this close to giving up. And so here's where I want to start today. Why insurance, right? I know most people don't ever wake up and go, man, I just want to get in the insurance industry. Talk to us a little bit about that journey from your transition to law enforcement to doing the insurance business.
Yeah. So whenever I was leaving law enforcement, I didn't have much of a plan. Most of the guys that I know that have left law enforcement have gone the sales route. I kind of got lucky, just kind of really lucky. I was going to visit my brother one day. One of his really, really close friends, one of my close friends, is in insurance. That's Brett Boyd. And just kind of ran into Brett. Brett said, "Hey, I heard you're getting out of law enforcement, that you're doing a sales job now." I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "You ought to come and do this with me." So I said, "You know what? Let's give it a shot." And it's just been great ever since.
Yeah, I definitely love that. And I want to stay here for a second because I always tell agents your why is going to change in this industry, right? It's going to change a little bit and depending on what season you're in. So talk about how your why has changed from just a friend inviting you in, you leaving this industry to now what your why is today. And here's why, Brian, is because I tell people all the time, if you have a weak why, you will not stay in this industry long term. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And when I first got into it, I didn't have a real strong why.
Right.
So I've told my story a few different places, but I was about 3 days away from quitting. I didn't see me continuing with it. It was a Friday night. I was talking with my wife and was about to tell her, "Hey, we're just going to call Brett on Monday and tell him I'm done." And Brett beat me to it. He called me on Friday and said, "Hey, I want you to go to this event with me. I think it'd be really good." And ended up, my wife said, "Yeah, you need to go. If Brett's telling you, let's do it. Let's have you go." So I had a very, very weak why at the beginning, and I was ready to quit. But you kind of find that why when you start doing this, when you start sitting with people and talking with people. I think your why gets stronger and stronger the longer you do it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I love that. I think there's a nugget that I don't want people to overlook here in the beginning. Because I tell people this all the time, Brian. You're one event, you're one relationship, you're literally just one nugget away from just having a breakthrough in your business. Talk about how that event changed your mindset and you going and then you coming back a different person.
Yeah, well, I started in Medicare because that's what Brett and his entire team are. It's a huge Medicare team. And so I went into that and I didn't particularly enjoy Medicare. It's great.
Sure.
It's a great thing. I just wasn't my cup of tea. And he talked me into going to a telesales boot camp with Life Insurance Academy with Roger and Chris and all those guys.
Sure.
And when I sat down and I started talking to people on the phone, I realized this is a need. It's not about how much money can I make or anything like that. For me, I really get to help people. But at that boot camp, I sat down, never sold anything over the phone in my life. Even whenever I was my previous sales job, I was door to door, knocking on doors. "Hey, you need some home security. Let's get you set up." So never sold anything over the phone in my life. Sat down at this boot camp and ended up, I think I wrote 12 policies over 3 days at this boot camp. And then I sat down and realized, well, number one, you actually can do this. Like, this is possible. And getting to talk to the people that I talked to and realizing that this is a really big need for these people that are requesting information. It just really gave me the purpose as to what I was doing. And I think with other sales jobs, that's what I've missed is purpose, because I went from a job that had a very high purpose, like I was very purpose driven in what I was doing, to something that I wasn't. And that going to that boot camp and sitting there and really learning the process gave me that purpose again.
Yeah, I always tell people no matter what industry you're in or vertical, that you're in the insurance industry, is if you don't have a heart to really serve the people that you're called to serve at the highest level, you will really, you'll find out that money and commissions is a very temporary happiness, right? If there's no purpose and no meaning in it, you won't stay in the industry long term. So, few days away from just saying, I'm done. Brett invites you to this boot camp, this Final Expense boot camp. You have just an awesome production time there at the boot camp, but also during this journey too, you had some major health challenges as well, right? So not only
Yeah.
were you discouraged and frustrated over here, but all of a sudden life just is lifing, and this health scare happened. So talk about that, and then part B is, because I know you're a faith-based guy like I am. Talk about how part your faith played in this whole transition as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So a couple weeks after that first boot camp, I was sitting on my couch at the house and had a massive heart attack.
Wow.
And, my wife has been a nurse for years and years. I was sitting at home and I didn't tell her anything till the following day, and just told her like, hey, I have this real bad chest pain. And she's like, you're going to make a doctor's appointment right now before I leave for work. Called into the doctor's office, kind of told him what was going on, and got off the phone as quick as I could. I'm like, 2 weeks they'll see me. And my doctor, who I've known since I was like 10, she was my high school nurse growing up, called me and said, hey, you're coming in today. We're going to fit you in. And whenever I finally got done with everything, I got my angiogram. I got 3 different stents placed. The doctor told me that he doesn't know how I walked into the hospital, how I even survived the night after that big of a heart attack. And
Wow.
I have told everyone that, God's got something for me still.
Sure.
I'm a youth pastor, so that is a huge part of my life, and it's the biggest part of my life. Everything else is secondary. Everything else is secondary. So with me, one thing that I do every morning before I pick up my first phone call, I'm spending time in my Bible, and I am praying every day that please put me with the right people. Let me talk to the right people that need help
That's good.
today. So yeah, my faith is a huge driving factor for me, that God has a plan for me. I don't know what that plan is. Nobody does, but he does, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
day by day, making sure that I'm doing the things that God would have me do.
Yeah, and I love that, Brian. I like to tell people this, and I kind of want to just camp out here for a second. I call it the secret place time, early in the morning, right? Whether that's at your kitchen table, whether it's at the gym, in your car on the way to work, or wherever. I tell people that secret place time, just you and God, right, really sets you up for success every single day. Now, I want to define success, because we tend to think success is only money, right? Commissions coming in. For me, success is, God, will you help me love, serve, and impact the people that you've called me to love, serve, and impact? And I know that if I stay in alignment with him, Brian, I know his responsibility is the harvest. My responsibility is the activity. So as long as I do my part, I can always trust that God is going to do his part. So I definitely love what you're saying there, that you say, hey, God, let me get in front of the right people today. Help me have the strength to be able to get through today and to help as many people as possible. Let me ask you something. Did you go full time into Final Expense when you came out of law enforcement, or are you part time?
No, I started part-time
Okay.
because I had that other sales job that I was working. I was making money in that sales job, and there was some nervousness for me of doing this full-time.
Sure.
Now, the other sales job, it was commission based only as well, so it wasn't like I'm not sure if I can make money doing this. It was a momentary pause to make sure that, because I just jumped into it. Brett's like, hey, you should try this, and I'm like, Yeah, sounds great. I went and took my test, 2 weeks later and got licensed and then had that moment like, man, I'm not sure this is the right thing. So it was more of a, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna put some time into it, but I want to make sure that this is what God wants for me. But yeah,
Sure.
I started part-time, and I really think that's why I struggled with Medicare too, though, is because I did it part-time with a part-time mentality that, I'm gonna work, 4 hours this week or 6 hours this week, or
Yeah.
whatever I was working this week, and just see what comes of it, instead of doing it part time with a full time mentality that this is the plan. Because I think you can start part time in this as long as you treat it like a full time job, right? That when you're doing it, that's what you're doing. There's nothing else going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, and starting part time, I stayed part time. I think the first 4 to 5 months I was in it. Once I started doing final expense, 4 to 5 months, and then just got that calling that, hey, this is it. Take
Yeah.
take the jump, take the leap.
Yeah, it's interesting. And the reason I asked that is because I agree. I think 'cause in our industry, sometimes you just hear people saying, go all in. And I'm not against that either. For some people,
Mhm.
that does work. But some of you that are watching today, you need to go back and listen to what Brian just said, because you can start part time in this industry, but you need to have a full time mentality. Like, I run into people all the time, Brian, that just say, well, I'm going to try it out. I'm going to kind of, dip my foot in the pool a little bit, or my toe in the pool. And I understand what they're trying to say, but they're really almost self-sabotaging themselves from the very beginning, because what they do is their business just becomes an afterthought, right? Life gets in the way, and my TV show gets in the way, and this gets in the way, and that gets in the way, and they don't take it seriously. And I've worked with agents that are 4 years in the Medicare industry. That's primarily what we're in. And they're still struggling, but it's because they don't take it seriously. They don't adopt full-time mentality. So I definitely love what you're saying. I want to go back to something, to your law enforcement background, because you had a lot of adversity early on, which, PSA, everybody watching or listening to this, adversity is guaranteed in everyone's assignment, right? Everyone's going to have adversity. It's not a respecter of persons. But going back to your law enforcement background, what from that background really push through the adversity? What was a principle or something that you learned in that background that helped you get through
So
that season? Just seemed very chaotic.
yeah. So one thing that I did in law enforcement is SWAT. I was a SWAT guy
Mm,
for about 7 years, and I enjoyed it. But one thing that we did a lot is we did like force on force with what is called simunitions, which is basically
mhm.
a bullet that shoots paint. And the big thing with that is that training is a pain tolerance thing. It teaches you that when you get hit, you keep moving forward, that regardless of where you get shot with that paint, it's not going to kill you. You have to keep moving forward. And we did
Mm,
that because that have saved the life of many officers that were shot, that continue to fight because they said, hey, I went through all of this training, all of this stuff.
sure.
And that's what they teach us. And I kind of look at that in life, that you're going to get hit. You're going to get hit with so much stuff. You have to keep
Yeah.
moving forward.
Yeah.
That is fight forward. And my big thing with that is, when you look at the armor of God, when you go through that, there's no armor on the back. It's all on the
Mm,
front, because you're not supposed to turn and run. You're supposed to keep fighting forward.
right. No, I definitely love that. That's something I'm very passionate about talking about. John Maxwell calls it getting a return on your failure, ROF. A lot of times we think failure is a bad thing, but I love what you said. Hey, I got into Medicare, it just wasn't my jam. It just wasn't me. But instead of just throwing your hands in the air and quitting, right, which you were on the verge of doing, somebody stepped in, and then you go, wait a minute, this is a lesson that I learned here, right? I owned it. I learned from it. And then I love the fact now that you're repurposing it and you're doing something with that hard season that you were in. And now you're doing this full time. You're writing on average. What are you writing on an average month?
So I am normally, on an average week, I'm probably at 12 to 14,
Okay.
somewhere in
Okay.
there, which puts me, in that 40 to 44 a month.
Yeah. And the reason I bring it up and I ask that was because some of you that are watching this today or listening to this, you're not getting a return on your failure. You failed and then you just quit and, took your toys and just went on home, so to speak. And this is a wake up call for you. Go get a return on your failure, right? I always like to tell people, Brian, the grace of God allows us to fail forward, right? And some of you
Yes.
are not getting a return on your failure. Own it, learn from it, and then let it go repurpose it in your life and go do something with it. Because not only will you help yourself, but here's the bigger part, Brian, you will help others, right? You're sharing your story today. You've shared your story on several other podcasts, and you're repurposing it in such a way that it's encouraging and empowering others for sure. So I want to talk about three things that I heard you talk about in some other podcasts. And I know you're being a youth pastor. I'm a former pastor and still preach today. So I'm a big alliteration guy, but I want to talk about three C's, right? I want to talk about conviction, consistency, and community. In one of the podcasts that I heard you on, you talked about this word conviction. Define that for us. And then also how big of a part does that play in the business that you're in?
Yeah. So conviction, one of the things, and we have a pastor that comes to our church. His name is Prince. I love Prince. And he was up there, and he says it all the time now that I've heard him. But the first time he ever came to our church and gave a sermon, he was talking about that it is conviction, your conviction, that is going to cause people to turn towards the Lord. It's not, you could give them fact after fact after fact. That doesn't matter. It's your conviction for the Lord that is going to turn people to the Lord. And I think it's the same thing, that most of the people that we talk to, they know that they filled out this request. They know that they need something. And it doesn't matter whether it's life insurance, whether it's Medicare, whether it's a retirement product, whatever it is, they know that they need something. Giving them facts will help, but it's not going to turn the tide to where they make the decision like, yes, this is something that I want to do. They can have all the knowledge in the world, but without a little bit of conviction saying that this is the right thing, it's not going to make a difference. So it is your conviction to know that what I'm doing is the best thing for them that is going to move them to that decision. And that's the big thing. And I tell my team all the time when we have meetings that if you will take care of your clients, if you will do the right thing for your client, everything else will fall into place. If you're doing
Yeah.
the best thing for them, everything else will be taken care of.
Yeah. Facts. I
But
totally agree. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, but for me, that's the conviction in this, is that you're doing the right thing for your client.
Yeah, and I love that too, because you can't transfer to others what you first don't possess yourself. So if it's just all commission, money, 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 that's really what you're transferring in person. That's really what you're transferring over the phone. So that deep conviction makes all the difference in the world. Let's talk about consistency. I'm a big advocate of consistency. John Maxwell says that consistency compounds. And what I see a lot of times, Brian, in our industry is that agents give up so quickly, and they don't realize that if they'll just be consistent, Coach Michael Burke calls it long obedience in the same direction, right? If I'll just be consistent for a season, right, the results will be there. So talk about what consistency looks like in your day in and day out. Give us some real practical view of that.
So my consistency for me, and it's something that I actually learned from Roger and Chris and all those guys, because on my team, and I'm still one of the only guys that actually do life insurance on our team. So I didn't have anybody that was able to sit down and tell me, hey, this is what your day should look like. So I really leaned into those guys whenever I first started doing life insurance, because there was nobody on my team that did that. And so my consistency is that I am on the phone every day. I work for 6 hours. I want 6 hours of dialing, 6 hours of talking to people on the phone. And I make sure that I'm in my office 95% of the time. By 8, I'm on the phone at 8:30. I'm dialing from 8:30 to noon. I'm taking a break. I'm eating lunch. I'm calling my wife, making sure her day's going okay. She's making sure my day's going okay.
Sure.
And then I'm doing all of my kind of admin work from everything that happened in the morning. And then I am getting back on the phone and I'm dialing from 2 to 5.
Okay.
And that is day in, day out. I am dialing, 400 people a day, give or take, depending on the day. The days that I don't call that many are the days that I have conversations with a lot of people, which is great. And if I make more calls than that, I probably haven't had a great day. But that the
Right.
truth is that you can take the top person in life insurance in the country, they're still going to have 0 days,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You're still going to have days where just nothing seems to work out, where nothing goes right. But if you have the consistency of, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to make, 300 dials today, and I'm going to do that every day, then and you follow that and you do that every day, everything else will fall into line. One of the guys that I've really grown close with, and I really appreciate his mentorship, is Elvir. And Elvir has a
Yes.
thing that he tells every new person, every boot camp we go to, there's somebody that, hey, this is my first day dialing, and he will sit them down and he will tell them, if you will make 150 phone calls, you will make
Yes.
a sale. I
Yep.
guarantee you'll make a sale. And that's what I try to push my new people. We're starting to bring some people on the life side, and I'm really excited
Sure.
about that. But I tell them the same thing, that if you will make 150 phone calls, I promise you will make a sale. I promise you will find somebody that needs this, that wants this, that has a conviction to say yes, that you will make a sale. And I believe that statistic is like one of the most true statistics that I've ever heard. And if I have those days, I'm like, it's just not going very well, and I look and I made 300 phone calls, I promise I made 2 sales that day.
Yeah.
It's just uncanny to me,
Yeah.
but
No,
that's
I definitely love
consistency.
that, Brian. Yeah, I love that. I have a saying that says that when I have been around people that have been very successful in this industry, because the word breakthrough gets thrown around a lot, right? And even in faith, everybody
Yep.
wants a breakthrough. But what I have found hanging out with really successful people in this industry is that breakthrough really happens when you're willing to be consistent in the basics and the boring every single day. Right? Because in your industry, especially in your vertical, it's the sexy and shiny a lot, where people just love the sexiness of the final expense industry and the money and the cars. And you get on Instagram and TikTok and, you see all these big things happening. But a lot of times, if you were to just sit with somebody day to day, it's exactly what you said. They're doing the basics and the boring every day. They're picking up the phone. They're calling the leads. They're doing the admin stuff. They're doing all this other stuff. And I love what you said, and I don't want to overlook this. Some of us, all right, and many of us in this industry, I should say, there are some days where it just doesn't happen for us. But because we're consistent, right? We're playing the numbers instead of allowing the numbers to play us. We know that we're just right around the corner from another sale. So I definitely think new agents needed to hear that, because it's so easy to think I'm just going to get on the phone and everything happen, because we get on social media and it's almost like all we see is the success story, but we don't see all the consistency in the background. So I love that. Let's finish out with number 3. Number 3 is the word community. You've already talked about it at various times during our interview today, but talk about the community and why it's such important part in new agents having success in this industry.
Yeah. Well, this industry can be an extremely lonely industry. When there's so many people, and I've seen like recruitment ads and everything, work from home and make, X amount of dollars a month. And it sounds great. And then you get to where you're doing it and you realize that I am only sitting at home. I am by myself 95% of the time. Um, and, and that really, I don't believe that people were made to be alone, that we're made to be around other people.
Yes.
And you'll have those days, I have an office that I go to now most days. Sometimes I work from home because I have some stuff going on, and that's just going to make it easier for me. But, I have an office where I'm around other people because I need that to be around other people. But I think that when you first get into it, that's a draw, right? That I'll work from home, make your own schedule, you do what you want to do. And
Right.
then people get into that, especially somebody that goes from the career that I went went from. There's that very close brotherhood that we were always around each other. We were always doing stuff together.
Sure.
You're out in the community. And then all of a sudden I went to a job that I was just sitting in a room by myself 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day, and it became very lonely. Luckily
Yeah.
for me, I found that community with Roger and Chris and Elvire and people from my team too. Like we get
Sure.
together a couple days a week now and we just dial together. You know, hey, we're going to
Yeah.
go meet over here. We're going to sit and we're going to dial all day long. I really like it because I get to be around people that are where I was, where they're kind of struggling a little bit. And, you know, I can't get people to stay on the phone. I can't do this. I'm like, well, let's listen to some calls. Let's figure this out. And community is vitally important to any success. You
Yes.
will fail if you just sit and try to do stuff by yourself. If you are constantly alone, if you say, I don't need help from anybody, I'm perfectly fine, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
The secret, though, is failure is part of the success story that we've already
That's
talked
it.
about, that everybody's going to
Yeah.
fail, right? Michael Jordan has the quote that, you know, I failed 1,000 times to succeed, you know, doing what I did, which is true.
Yes.
But if you try to do everything by yourself, if you don't reach out in your community, you're going to struggle, and the struggles are going to continue until you find that community that you really fit into.
Right.
For me, I was very lucky. When I was ready to quit, I was by myself. You know, I would call Brett and be like, hey, you know, this is what's going on today. And he'd be like, great. And I went out with him a few times. It's not like they tried to isolate me. I isolated myself.
Sure. Right.
And then I went and I sat in that room with, you know, 20 other people that were doing the same thing as I was. And I said, okay, this is what it's supposed to be like. And since I had that experience, I try to get that as much as I can. Now I can't always
Yeah.
go to boot camps to do that, but we have in my area, we have a decent sized team. There's about 30 of us. Now, they're not all 30 of us are doing life insurance, but we make sure that we are getting together on a routine basis and doing stuff
Sure.
together. We have they're not mandatory by any stretch of the imagination, but we have meetings every day. That hey, at noon today we're gonna jump on Zoom. We're whatever you guys need to talk about, we'll do it. And me and Brett are running that every single day. So that community is one of the most important things that you can have to be successful, because
Yeah.
I look at community kind of like I look at church, that the church, that word, the translation is those that were called away, that it's the group of people, right? It's not the building you're going to, it's the people that are there. And the reason I think that it's important is when I go to church, if I'm dealing with something, there's probably somebody at church that has dealt with that before as well. And they'll be
Sure.
able to put their arm around my shoulders and say, hey, this is what I dealt with. I dealt with this, 20 years ago, and this is the steps that we had to take to kind of get through that. And I think it's the same thing when you get in a community in insurance. If I'm struggling with something, somebody else in that room has struggled with it before, and they're going to be able to put their arm around my shoulder and say, hey, I know you're struggling the first 30 seconds of the phone call. I've heard this. Let's try it this way. And that's why I think community is so vitally important to that. Is there's somebody in that
Yeah.
room, in that community, that has dealt with what you're dealing with right now, and they're going to be able to help you through it.
Yeah, and that's part of repurposing that failure, right? That season that you were going through. You get in community and you go, hey, I've been there. I've done that. Let me help you. And it's so interesting you use the word church there, the ecclesia, right, in the Greek. It's interesting you use that word, because I tell people when I go to my FMO's annual event, or when I go out to go to an 8% event, shout out Cody Askins, right? It's like I call it going to my insurance church. It's like-minded people, right? We're all there to encourage one another, to empower one another. And I think you would agree with this. It's not only community, but it's being in alignment with the right community, because the wrong community can actually cripple you, right?
Yes.
And so definitely love what you're bringing up there. Brian, as we close today, I want to ask you something. Is there something that you go, you know what, this is one piece of advice that I want to give a first-year insurance agent that we didn't talk about today as we close?
Yes. So one thing, whenever I was going full time, I messaged everybody that I could think of. I talked to Clark, I talked to Elvira, I talked to, Chris and Roger and Tim, and I sent them that message, right? If there's one thing that you could tell yourself whenever you were starting this, what would it be? And I think the biggest thing that all of them said is the secret is that there is no secret, right? That if you have the activity, you're going to be successful. And success looks different for every person, right? Because I'm telling you you're going to be successful doesn't mean you're going to be a millionaire in 2 years, right? Your success may look different than other people's success. I went from a job that I made $40,000 a year, right? Success to me was anything above that $40,000 whenever I first got into this. If I can just make that or a little more, I'm successful. And I'm to that point now where success looks different for me now than it did a year ago. But the secret is that there's no secret. And if you're in the right community, I've talked to all the guys in my community, be like, hey, what lead vendor are you using? How are you doing this? What is going on here? Every single one of them is open and saying, hey, this is exactly what we're doing. This is exactly what I'm doing. And the secret is there is no secret, because if you have the activity, you'll be successful. If you're in the right community, you'll be successful. If you have that conviction, you're going to be successful. If you can get those three things, right, that we talked about today, the consistency, the community, the conviction, you're going to be successful. That's the secret that isn't a secret, that if you have those things, then you're going to be just fine.
Yeah. I can't think of a better way to end today's podcast, because it's almost frustrating, because there's people in our industry, and I'm not a hater, but it angers me when people try to sell them this lead vendor or this platform or this, or fill in the blank, right? I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's like, it's you. You have to go and take what you've learned and go implement it, right? We have so many insurance agents that just want to get more information, a new this, a new that, but they don't want to go implement anything. And the activity is the secret sauce. Once again, you can either play the numbers or the numbers will play you. Well, Brian, thanks for coming on today, man. You brought some serious value. I like to say you spit some serious fire today. And listen, if there's something that we didn't answer in today's podcast, please put it in the comments below, and Brian and myself would be more than happy to answer that for you. Take a moment to subscribe to this channel. This just helps me get this information out to other first-year insurance agents like yourself. And here is a secret. If you want to grow in your business, especially if you're looking to grow a team, I want you to go listen to me and my good friend Corey Lee talk about the 5 levels of leadership and how it's going to affect your insurance business. And you can go watch that video right here.